Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 505 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our fifth book just came out. It's called Perseverance and How to Be a Great Fraternity or Sorority Alumnus. So I want you to go and pick up that book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring fraternity and sorority leaders together. Fun fact, what I've realized over time is that resilience is the key determinant of your success in life. There will be stress coming your way. There is going to be loss in your life. There's no question about that. The real question is, how are we going to react when it finds you? So to talk more about resilience and stress, we have a fantastic expert on our show today. Dr. Steven Sideroff is an internationally recognized expert in resilience, optimal performance, addiction, neurofeedback, and alternative approaches to stress and mental health. He is an associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Biobehavioral Sciences with a joint appointment in the Department of Rheumatology at UCLA's School of Medicine, as well as the director of the Raoul Wallenberg Institute of Ethics. For over 40 years, Dr. Sideroff has been passionate about studying and understanding resilience and optimal performance. He has developed and established innovative models of behavior and treatment approaches for restoring physical, emotional, and mental balance and effectiveness in North America, Europe, and Asia. Welcome to the show, Dr. Sideroff.
Hey, that's a great introduction. I appreciate it. Thank you, Michael.
Hey, listen, it's my pleasure to have you on the show. If you want me to introduce you on stages all across the country, I'm available. Just pack me in your suitcase and we're ready to go.
All right.
So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your background educationally, and I found it kind of funny that obviously I'm a SUNY Buffalo graduate. So I love when I see other SUNY graduates on our show. You graduated with an undergraduate psychology degree from SUNY Binghamton. What made you choose Binghamton?
I was looking to get out of town from New York City. And my parents were not rich and they couldn't go to private schools. So I was looking for the best public education nearby, but far enough away from my parents.
Yeah, it sounds like we chose schools for the same reason.
Yeah, and I chose, at the time, it was Harper College. It was just when it was becoming SUNY Binghamton. And it was on a trimester system. So I actually started my college life in June, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing. Incredible. Yeah, we were very much aligned in all aspects. I was born in New York City, raised in Rockland County, New York, and then went up to Buffalo for the same reason. It was just far enough away that I knew my parents would have to call me before they would come and visit.
right.
I love that. And you also served as president of your fraternity. You were even IFC president back in the day at Binghamton. So tell our audience, what fraternity did you choose and what made you want to join them?
I was a member of Delta Sigma. So at the time, those were just local organizations, not national. And I chose it because I enjoyed the quite frankly, the members of the fraternity. They knew how to have a good time. And so I got a lot of my early activity out during those years at Binghamton. There's a good bunch of guys, so that was the reason why I picked them.
Yeah, certainly makes sense. People join people, as we say in the industry, and you
Right.
just found a group of guys you enjoyed hanging out with. It's very simple, right? So I think that's important to consider when you think about recruitment and adding more people. It's all about the relationship. It wasn't one particular event that Delta Sigma put on. It was just you wanted to hang out with those guys. You just enjoyed their company, right?
Yeah.
So I like that. That's really good. Now, you have over 40 years of extensive research, training, and clinical experience. Obviously, you're also an assistant professor over at UCLA School of Medicine. You've written the new book. It's called The Nine Pillars of Resistance. I see it there, or Resilience, I'm sorry, in the background. And you've dedicated your life to understanding these intricacies of resilience. Now, in the book, you mentioned that mastering stress is the hallmark of adaptability and a consistent marker of overall life success. So, how in the world do we master stress?
Well, it's a ongoing process, and that's really the key. It's an ongoing process, and it's based on having a growth mindset, meaning that if you find any shortcoming in yourself, you don't go, "Oh, look at me, I have this weakness." You go, "How do I improve along this dimension? How do I grow? How do I learn to do better at this?" And so a growth mindset, experiencing the stresses in your life as challenges to be met head on is really the optimal way of addressing the stresses in your life. Rather than shrinking from them, you embrace them, because every time you encounter a stress, you learn and you grow from that. This is why I talk about stress, not resilience, not as the ability to bounce back, but the ability to bounce forward, because you want to learn the lessons every time you encounter stress. We encounter stress, we deal with it from our old perspective, and we want to learn the new lessons so we find a better way of doing it.
That certainly makes sense to me. I know I was scared out of my mind to speak on stages, and with consistency and doing it over and over again, yeah, that was a fear of mine. But over time, I got better at it, right? So it's constantly confronting it and figuring out, okay, what lessons did I learn here? What jokes worked? What jokes were terrible and nobody laughed, right? And constantly refining that. You also in the book talk about the path, which is your model for achieving resilience. Can you explain a little bit more in detail? What is the path? So, Dr. Sideroff, I was wondering, what is the path? Can you explain to our audience a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So in life, there's so many stresses, and there's so much, everybody has so much on their plates. I have to do this, I have to do that, which can create stress for all of us. The idea behind the path is that it sits alongside of us every moment of every day. And the path is defined by my 9 pillars of resilience. So when you take steps to improve along any of those dimensions, that puts you on the path. So the path is available and accessible to you every moment of every day to become more resilient and to deal with stress. It's not this thing far down the road that I have all of this work to do to achieve. No, if I follow just a few steps from my book, and it takes me onto the path, and I could feel successful in the moment. And that's a key to managing stress and being more resilient, feeling like you can handle the situation right here, right now, and be on the path.
Got it. Okay. I also noticed that you have a resilient assessment tool that helps your readers to identify their areas of strength as well as the areas they need to work on their journey along the path. So, what do you do after you find these areas that you need to work on?
Okay. So first of all, that as if I'm offering that as a free gift, my resilience assessment booklet, which includes the questionnaire and also a description of my model of resilience. So I'm offering that as a gift so that people can identify where their starting point is. It's always important to know where you're starting from on your journey, right? And so the other key is to be accepting of that starting point, rather than, oh, I'm low in my relationship with others, on my score, on my profile, and we feel upset about that. No, that's your starting point. Accept it. By acceptance, I don't mean it's okay. It's acceptance is simply accepting that reality of this is my starting point. From that, I really invite people to look at the first pillar of my model of resilience, your relationship with yourself. It's the most important relationship we all have in our lives. And for most of us, we grow up learning inappropriate ways of treating ourselves. We could be too hard on ourselves. We could be overly critical, judgmental, or negative. And so I encourage people to start noticing how they're talking to themselves. That's their inner voice. This is when you're by yourself, there's nobody else around, but you hear a voice. It's, you talking to yourself. And I contrast our existing internal voice with what I identify as the qualities of a healthy internal voice. The qualities of a healthy internal voice, we come from a place of love, acceptance, support, care, and joy. So that's the model of a healthy voice. And I encourage your audience to notice how you might be hard on yourself, critical and judgmental, and begin to speak to yourself in a much healthier, more positive way.
That would be great. If we can get everybody listening to speak more in that healthier voice, that would be great. I know everyone's very critical of themselves in their head. And so if they can move to that, I think that would be helpful. If we look at pillar 3 in your book, that is a more defined purpose in life. And I think this is where college students are struggling the most. They always think that the grass is greener on the other side of the fence or some other path. So they're always comparing themselves to another student in the path that they're on. So how can the college students listening find their purpose in life?
Well, that's a very good question, and it's a very important piece of my overall model of resilience, because when you develop a purpose, when you have a purpose, it gives you direction, it gives you a meaning to your life, and it smooths out the daily hassles. If you have a longer horizon, I'm heading in that direction, daily hassles don't bother you quite as much. So that's very important. The most important thing about finding your purpose is recognizing that that's a journey in and of itself. It's not like suddenly I'm going to know what my purpose is, but the direction you want to go in is, what am I passionate about? What is it that I could wake up in the morning and really go for? What that go into identifying a purpose? So the key in having a purpose is getting on a path to locate and identify what you enjoy doing, what you're passionate about, and that puts you in the direction of finding your purpose.
Absolutely. And you have to also be good at
Trust
it.
that.
Yeah. You also have to be good at it too, right? I mean, I see a bunch of singers that are trying out for a singing show like American Idol. Their dream is to be a great singer, but then they open their mouth and it's terrible, right? So you also have to kind of be good at it, right?
Yes, but if you have passion about it, it's going to motivate you to work harder in that area. But you're right, you have to be good at it. So once you have the passion, then you find what's within that realm that you're good at.
Right. Okay, got it. So one of the other pillars is emotional balance. And in there, you talk about the ability to let go and to not carry around this excess baggage that many of us carry around. I feel like that's easier said than done when it comes to concepts like forgiveness, for example. So do you have any tips for getting to forgiveness? Many times somebody does a wrong against us and we carry it around our entire lives.
Yeah, so I have a few suggestions here. First of all, if you're carrying a resentment or a grudge towards somebody else, what I want you to realize is who's being most affected by what you're carrying within your own body. It's not the person you're upset with, it's you. You're carrying that negativity inside of you. And so a lot of people say, well, I don't want to let that person off the hook because they did me wrong. You're not letting them off the hook by letting go. You're letting yourself off the hook from carrying around that negative energy. So that's an important reframing of why you want to let go, because you're freeing yourself up to not be carrying that excess baggage with you that doesn't serve you in any positive way.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Makes it easier on our listeners too. The one thing that I've learned in life is that most people will resist change. Why do so many people resist change when it might be a good change? It might be a positive thing. Dr. Sideroff, I had another question for you. The one thing that I've learned in life is that people resist change. Why do so many people resist change when it might be a good thing? Hey, Dr.
Um,
Sideroff, I was wondering, one of the things that I've learned in life is that people resist change. Why do you think so many people resist change when it might be a good thing?
well, our earliest learning, our childhood lessons are our survival learning. And so we get locked into those patterns because we don't realize that it's just conditioning. We think it's part of our DNA. And it's so important to realize that the ways we learn to be were taught to us in our childhood and are not necessarily the best lessons. One of my mentors said that when we're growing up, we swallow all of those lessons whole. And when we're adults, you want to bring them up and chew on them. And if they don't taste right, you spit them out. And so we want to reboot our ability to adapt to new learning and new lessons. So when we think about change, we want to instead think about growing. So change is something that we may resist, but when we think it's a growing process, that's something that we can all embrace.
I like that. Yeah, well, that's something certainly for us to consider as, whether it be in our jobs or in our student organization, we talk about making change. I think that growth model certainly makes a lot of sense. I like it. This is really good. This is a great conversation. All right, so I know you're in one of the most beautiful places in the country. It's called Santa Monica, California, which is just stunning. So the next time I get to Santa Monica, where should I go for a great meal?
Well, let's see. There's a restaurant called the Santa Monica Seafood Place on Wilshire Boulevard. I would recommend that.
That sounds really good to
Good
me. I tell you
seafood
what.
here.
Yeah, listen, I think that's the right choice in Santa Monica. It's seafood. That's where you're going to get some really fresh stuff. I mean, I live in Nashville, Tennessee, so there's nothing fresh about the seafood in Nashville, Tennessee. I can promise you that. It's all got to be flown in. It's just nothing like the restaurants you have out in Santa Monica. So I'm definitely going to check that out the next time that I'm speaking in Santa Monica. So, all right, if our listeners, if they want to go and buy your book, it's called The 9 Pillars of Resilience, and they want to get access to all of your expert programs that you offer online, where should they go?
So my website is drstephensideroff.com. A lot of very useful information there, that articles and interviews that they can listen to and read. My book is The 9 Pillars of Resilience, the proven path to master stress, slow aging, and increase vitality. And for college students, it's a way of having more energy to do more of whatever it is that you have passion to. And it's available online. It's available in bookstores as well. And it's really a blueprint of how to live your best life. It's a handbook for your optimal functioning.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing that excellent resource to our listeners. It's Dr. Stephen Sideroff. So he spells it Stephen, and the last name is Sideroff. Go look him up on Google, go to his website, check out all the interviews, check out the book, and go and pick that up because I think that's going to serve you really well over a lifetime. So thank you so much, Dr. Sideroff, for all your information and being with us here today.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you, Michael.
Of course, of course. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Sideroff, I want you to share it and I want you to like it on social media. We'll see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.